Hello, mighty warriors, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Alicia, and today I want to talk about the risk of faith and how the measure of true faith is that there is always a risk involved. Um, when Esther had to make a decision as to whether to disobey the normal court rules of approaching the king um, in order to save her people, there was a risk involved. And that risk was she may perish. Um, but she took that risk on faith that God would do a miracle, that he would provide a way of escape for her people. When Daniel um, told the king that he would not stop praying to his God. And there was a risk that he was taking when he said that, because the risk was death. And he did not know, even when he was in the den with the lion, that there would be someone in there who would shut the lion's mouth. But he took that risk on faith that God would deliver him, that he would keep his promise, or see him through, either on this side or the other side. When Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego told the king that they would not bow to that statue, they took a risk that they would face imminent death. And when they were thrown into the fiery furnace, they didn't know that God was going to, at the last minute, deliver them from that fiery blaze. When Abraham and Sarah were waiting and waiting for an heir and trying to believe God and believing God for what he said, there was a risk that they would not have an heir. There was a risk that for years and years that they waited, that their family line might perish. But they believed God for his promise that he would make of them many nations. They would be the parents of many nations. So, it's important to understand that when God is testing your faith, there's usually a very huge and uncomfortable risk involved. And that risk is there to see if you believe God and what he says, if you believe the things that he said that he will do. And sometimes he'll take you all the way to the end of the line. You're standing right there at the lion's den and you're thinking, I gotta go into this den. You know what I mean? And then you go into this den and then you're worried, what's gonna happen. The Lord, he takes it down to the wire. He really does. And so I just want to, put out there what I learned about true faith and what God is really looking for. He's looking for heroes of the faith, like in Hebrews, who no matter what the circumstance was, no matter what the final outcome was going to be, they still stood their ground and they still believed God for what he said he would do. So I pray that you can all stand on faith. I know that I pray and purpose my heart that I can stand on faith. Even though sometimes, as we talked before last week, things get hard and our faith starts to waver. But we have to be on our guard, because that's when the enemy, when our faith starts to waver, that's usually a sign that there's a breakthrough coming. And when the enemy sends that counterfeit, that should be, instead of a reason for us to snap it up, it should be a reason for us to pause and say, hey, this isn't what God promised, but I can see that the enemy is trying to get me to take this bait here. So maybe I'm closer to my breakthrough than I realize. Sometimes the enemy can give away when God's going to come through for you because he sends us those counterfeits to try to fake us out. And so when those counterfeits come, we should reject them, but then that should be a reason for us to say, "Hey, I know my breakthrough's coming through soon," because if it wasn't, the enemy wouldn't have tried to get me to leave all of God's goodness and his promises on the table. So I hope that this blesses you. I hope that everybody out there listening, that you can stand on faith, that you can believe God for his word, because he is a man of his word and he will do the things that he says he will do. And sometimes you don't get those breakthroughs though until the very end, until God knows for sure what you're willing to give up for him. And in many cases, that's your very life. You have to, it says in the word, you have to lose your life to gain it. Well, again, thank you for listening. We'll talk again soon. Don't forget, be baptized and be blessed. Signing off.